This statement might not surprise many people, but the Edmonton Oilers are going to struggle to make the playoffs with this current roster. And here's what's going on in case you didn't know. They have one of the worst defenses in the NHL. Through 22 games, they have 22 points, and they've given up 80 goals, which is, as of recording this, the most in the National Hockey League. 80 goals. They didn't hit that 80 goal mark until the 20th game of the season last year. At 5-on-5, they've given up the most goals, 58, in the National Hockey League. Their goaltending, horrible. Team save percentage, the worst in the NHL. And I'm not going to beat the dead horse and talk about Skinner and their goaltending issues and what he's not doing and what he should be doing. I think if you watch the Edmonton Oilers, and Oilers fans know this, it's time for this Stuart Skinner, even Calvin Pickard experiment to come to an end. The problem is going out and getting a netminder, a number one goalie, or a 1A to a 1B, and go with the tandem. That's very hard to do right now. Not many goalies are available in the NHL. Good ones, at least. So they're kind of stuck with what they got. And it's not all on the goaltenders. The defense in front of them, they've been horrible from top to bottom. There are nights when Knobloch goes out with 7D and all 7 don't deserve to be on the ice. And I'll get to that. Let's talk about their wins. They only have 4 regulation wins this season. 4. The Calgary Flames, who are in tank mode but don't want to admit that they're in tank mode, that they're in pure rebuild mode, have more regulation wins than the Edmonton Oilers at this point in the season. How is that possible? How is that possible? That stat is glaring. And when they do win, it's either a comeback or they blow a lead and then win it at overtime. And one of the reasons why they're always behind the 8 ball is because they're 0-7-1 when the opponent scores first. Let's go through some of their wins. Against Ottawa, they blow a 2-goal lead in the third. They win in overtime. Montreal blow a 3-1 lead, come back and win 6-5. Utah come back from 2-0, 3-2 to win 6-3. Chicago 2-1 lead. They win it in OT. Columbus, right after they got shellacked 9-1 by the Colorado Avalanche, they come back from 3-1 against the Blue Jackets and 4-2 to win in OT. They barely won that game. Jack Roslovic scored an OT. I don't know if this is the next night or a couple nights after. Against Philly, they barely survived to win that game. A goal is called back on Philadelphia in the last seconds of the third period. What happens? Oilers win it in OT. It's Roslovic again. And against Carolina, they give up 2 leads and win in overtime. That's not sustainable. You can look at it, right? You can look at it glass half full. That, man, these guys can score goals. They're creating chances. They're pesky. They're never out of it. And that's the truth, especially when you have Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and a supporting cast of guys like Bouchard and Hyman and now Jack Roslovic who can show up when they're on the ice with those guys. But the offense hasn't been generating the same as it used to be, even though they are scoring goals. Per Jonathan Willis, Corsi Knight on Twitter, he wrote an article, a really good one, on the Oilers' struggles on his Substack. Go check it out. He said the Oilers had 9 5-on-5 rush attempts in their first 21 games. 9 5-on-5 rush attempts. Why aren't they creating more? Is that just on the players or is that coaching? I'm going to go with coaching. I think this is another issue with the Edmonton Oilers. Defense, goaltending, relying on superstars too much, and coaching. I'll go back to the Washington game the other night. Brett Kulak was on the ice for the first 3 goals. Edmonton's been outscored 15-0 this month at 5-on-5 with Brett Kulak on the ice. He's playing really bad right now. He's not as bad as he's playing. He's a good defenseman. I like him a lot. But right now, he probably needs to sit. And what surprised me watching that game was the Oilers were going with 7D. And unless I missed something, he didn't really miss a shift because I kept seeing him on the ice. He was making a lot of mistakes, and it's not just him. But when you have one of your defensemen who's on the ice for that many goals in a single month, 15, at 5-on-5 and not generating any offense, I think maybe it's time to sit him or just don't play him at all. Sit him for a couple shifts or don't play him at all. That, again, is on coaching. And then always going to the stars. And I understand when you have superstars like Draisaitl and McDavid, and your team is struggling to score goals, and you constantly have to come back in games, you have to rely on these guys. It just feels like Knobloch uses that all the time. Anytime there's an offensive zone draw from an icing or whatever, it's Hyman, it's McDavid, it's Draisaitl, it's Bouchard, it's Darnell Nurse. And that's constant throughout every single game. And one of the reasons is because no one else is creating offense. They're really not getting any depth scoring outside of, Roslovic. Let's be real. They're getting some from the defense. Darnell Nurse scored 2 goals against Washington. But it's just not sustainable that your stars are going to bail you out every single night. And I know some people are going to say, dude, relax. It's November. It's early. They do this every single season. Yes, this is true. And I know you'll say, well, they're only 2 points out of a playoff spot. This is true. 2 points out of third in their division, 2 points out of wild card spot. Problem is, they've played more games than anyone else in the conference except for the Calgary Flames. That's a problem. Also, the West is a lot stronger than it was last year and the season before that. Anaheim looks legit. Seattle looks pretty good. They're going to stay in contention. At least it seems that way. I know that it's early. There's no more free points in the Western Conference. San Jose and Chicago, maybe they won't make the playoffs, but they might be right there in a wild card race. They might be. And if you're going to Chicago, you're going to San Jose, or they're coming to you, that is not an easy game to play. So points are hard to come by. They've played more games than anyone else except Calgary, like I mentioned. So from now until the end of the season, it's tough sledding. And who knows? Just who knows what happens coming out of the Olympics? I know that's all the way in February. But if there's an injury to one of McDavid or Draisaitl, and I know any team that loses a star is going to struggle, but especially the Oilers because they lean on them so heavily. And if you want to look back to last season, at this point last year, they had 24 points, so 2 more than what they have right now. 64 goals scored, 69 goals against. So defense was a bit better. They were playing a better game, even though it was a slow start. But unless, this is my huge take here, unless there's a serious change, either with the coach, a massive roster shakeup, I don't know what that would be, you go out and find some goaltending, or the players from within just figure it out. Which, if I'm putting together a list of things that can probably happen to change this thing, having the guys on the roster figure it out right now is probably at the bottom of that list. There clearly needs to be a change. I don't know if it's the coach, but you're going to get that new coach bump. You saw it happen with Woodcroft. When he was canned, Knobloch came in, they turned it around, they went to the Stanley Cup final. I don't know if that's a solution, but it's something that can change things. A roster shakeup. What is that? Don't know. Maybe it's a goaltender. Maybe it's a defenseman. Maybe you trade one of your key pieces. Maybe you see if you can flip a Darnell Nurse. Something needs to change, or else the Edmonton Oilers are going to struggle to make the playoffs. And even if they do make the playoffs, with this iteration of the team, they're not going very far.